it's Dr. Yum, and I am here with some tips for your picky eater. These are tips that are typically for kids who are preschool age or young school age kids. And there are a lot of picky eaters, so don't worry, you are not alone. So I have 8 tips for you, okay? Number 1 is resist the urge to call your child a picky eater. And I know it's hard because we want to talk about their eating habits, but when we continually use the word picky eater, our child might think that that's who they are and that's who they're always going to be. And we would never call our child a bad reader or a bad talker if they were delayed or having issues with those developmental tasks. So we want to make sure that we are positive. So you can call your child a learning eater or an exploring eater or a practicing eater or an adventurous eater to show them that they can get better at eating. Okay, number 2 is try again. So it takes a lot of tries, and parents don't realize just how many tries it takes for your child to enjoy a new food. It doesn't just take 2 or 3 times of trying broccoli. It may take 10, 12, even 15 tries. So along the way, as you're trying and rotating, you can try in different fun ways. You can roast, you can steam, you can try raw, you can try dips, but make sure that you don't give up because it takes a while for our physiology to change. When we try new foods, those proteins that digest foods in our saliva also change, and that's how food tastes different and better as we try. So we gotta keep trying. Okay, the third tip is that sometimes when kids are very sensitive to trying, they may gag. And my good friend and co-author of Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater, Coach Mel, is a pediatric feeding specialist, and she taught me this great trick that we should try on our dinosaur teeth. So kids have these premolars when they open up their mouth, and I show kids where those are. You can take a tiny bite, like a size of a little petite diced carrot or pea, and put it on their dinosaur teeth, or they can put it right on there, and then they can chomp, okay? So this is important because they're less likely to gag when they're back there, chewing from the side of their mouth. And then you can also distract them by saying chomp, and this provides another sensory distraction. And that can really help with that gag. And have fun with it. Show your kids that you can chomp too. Maybe have a competition with friends or siblings who can chomp the loudest when we're trying a new food, but that really does help. Okay, next tip is if your child is very hesitant and sensitive about these new tastes, which can be overwhelming at first, offer them a little cup of water. So when they're doing their dinosaur teeth and the chomp, if they're feeling overwhelmed by the taste, have a little cup of water. When they pick it up, they're probably gonna involuntarily swallow. So that's great. They can swish that little bite down with some water so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming, and eventually they won't need the water as they keep practicing. Okay, number 5 is cook with your children. And I know cooking with kids can feel a little overwhelming. There's a lot to do when you're cooking, and it is actually a part of the day that you can enjoy with your kids. You don't have to be in the kitchen cooking by yourself. I always say the meal can start when you start cooking. And sometimes when you're chopping vegetables and enjoying that time together, those tasting bites can happen, right? And it doesn't feel as overwhelming. So a few things that you can do to cook with your kids are just little tasks. It can be as simple as washing and drying produce, right? Getting a little bit of work with your fine motor skills by doing things like juicing a lemon or a lime and then pouring that juice. Zesting can be fun, right? So we can use a little zester. We can have them pick up little foods with tongs. That's fun, fine motor work. And if they're sensitive about the way food tastes or the way food feels, they can use little tongs. These are awesome dog knives that are on the Dr. Yum store, and these are great for kids 3 and up to teach them knife skills and really make them helpful in the kitchen. They can actually help you prep some of those veggies for that stir fry. They can be stirring, and there are lots of big and small, differently sized cooking utensils. Peeling is fun. You don't even have to have these kinds of things. Like I said, washing, drying, tearing things like herbs or spinach to make a salad. So all those things are fun work for kids to do, and they get kids familiar so that eventually they may want to try those foods because they've been around them, they've smelled them, they've touched them, they know how they feel, and they're not as scary. Okay, number 6 is limit snacking. So it's really hard for kids to feel hungry and motivated to try foods if they are snacking all the way up to that meal time. So we want to leave 1 or 2 hours before a meal or snack to let hunger develop. Sometimes kids get a little bit antsy and they want that snack right now. So distract them, you know, hey, remember we're gonna eat at lunchtime, let's go outside and play, or let's read a book, and then we can get to lunchtime and we can figure out what we're gonna eat. And when kids get to the meal a little hungry, they're more likely to try those practice foods. Okay, and then on the same vein, we want to limit our favorite foods. So kids can really get into these food jugs where they like the same 3 foods, and it can make it hard for them to try new foods. So you want to limit those everyday favorite foods and put those sometimes foods on the plate along with some practice foods. So sometimes foods are the foods that sometimes they'll eat and sometimes they won't, and the foods that they are practicing. So there's something on the plate that they'll try, and they may even then try that practice food, as opposed to piling on those favorite foods where all they want to eat are those favorite foods. So we've got to rotate those off of the plate, okay? And then the last thing is try not to hide veggies, okay? And I know as parents we want to pack in as many veggies as possible. So I call that packing in veggies. And you can pack in veggies, whether you have a hesitant eater or a great eater, packing veggies into soups and sauces and pasta and eggs and muffins is a great idea for nutrition, right? We can never eat too many of those wonderful everyday foods. However, we also want to keep those fruits and veggies on the plate in plain sight so that we have a familiarity. And if your child is just looking at them or maybe touching them and not eating them, they're at least keeping that connection and eventually will want to try them. But we don't want to remove them from the plate just because we are eating them. We want to keep them in plain sight. And to make ourselves feel better and to increase nutrition, we can pack veggies also into other familiar foods. Okay, so those are my 8 tips. If you want more tips, please go to dryem.org, or you can pick up our book, Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater, which is now in its 2nd edition. And I'll be back with another tip soon. Thanks, bye.